22 hours is a long time in football, as is 22 days. Even get a double bubble promotion. Well, we're here to plug the knowledge gap of 22 years since ITFC's last Premier League adventure here on the Blue Monday podcast. Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast, discussing the town up or down since 2015. Welcome to a live reaction show special covering all things Premier League ahead of Ipswich Town's upcoming 24-25 season. You can catch us usually live during the week on YouTube and on demand on podcast. But in the off season, where it's a bit more chaotic, a bit more ad hoc. But here we are tonight on a Wednesday as we're recording this to chat Premier League. And joining me, two experts, frankly. I'm a total numpty when it comes to this stuff. A lot of you, my Premier League IQ is so low, but dealing with it day to day are Mikey Penty-Smith, a familiar face, but a new face to the podcast. Izzy Minter, our friend from, I can say it, you're from TalkSport, aren't you, Izzy? You're here to give us your insights as well. We'll start with Mikey first. We'll give Izzy plenty of time to introduce yourself. But Mikey, we haven't chatted since promotion. Do you remember that day? That was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just over a month ago, wasn't it? Magical day, magical times. And yeah, very nice of you to give me 4 weeks off, Rich, just to recharge the batteries and be back strong for the Premier League stuff. I've been playing lots of golf, Rich.
Yeah,
a little bit of a break. I've been playing lots of football, and then suddenly I'm playing lots of golf. But it's a nice change for me because I can hit a nice accurate chip from 20 yards and people don't accuse me of it being a cross.
That's true. And if you haven't seen that, I don't think we posted that footage on the internet yet. It's been in the Telegram group and I think someone's seen the Titanic version. But Mikey, do you want me to put that out there on the Blue Monday Twitter so people know what you're talking about?
Yeah, go on then, Rich.
Yeah. Mikey, do you want to explain the situation? It wasn't a cross. Hashtag wasn't a cross. Do you want to
So some people know I work for Premier League Productions. I've worked there for 6 seasons now. And for our end of season wrap party, we had a match on the pitch at the Brentford G-Tech Stadium. I was on a different team to Matt Holland and my team came out on top, winning 5-4.
Nice.
And then we had a bit of a party on the concourse after. It was all good fun.
But and an epic goal for you, Mikey, which was definitely not a cross. So we'll put that out there. We might put a poll to go with it, and we'll get the audience's view on that. No, we won't do that to you, Mikey. Good to have you with us, and confirming your credentials for being here as well, which is also great. Izzy, welcome to the Blue Monday podcast. It's your pod debut, special guesting. Introduce yourself. Town fan, obviously, but very much involved in Premier League stuff day in, day out, similar to Mikey.
Yes, so I work at TalkSport Radio. I'm a live sport producer, so I spend the majority of the season in football stadiums, setting up all the equipment, working on commentaries, and yeah, kind of making sure everything comes together. I always say first there, last to leave, and yeah, just putting everything together. So yeah.
Yep. And you've covered a few games at Portman Road in the last few seasons as our resurgence gathered pace, but presumably very excited to be attending potentially with work in a Premier League kind of capacity.
Yeah, as soon as those fixtures come out, I'm literally going to be bugging my football editor for all the ones that we'll have us on TalkSport, saying, please, 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 this one. But because TalkSport is also the hope of the EFL over the last couple of seasons, and because we generally, our fixtures line up with what's on Sky. So because we were on Sky so much last season, it meant that I got to do a lot of the games, which was brilliant, and really kind of felt a part of this promotion. And yeah, it's been brilliant. And I can't wait for our first kind of Premier League game back and live on TalkSport. It's going to be pretty magical.
Yeah, and just give everyone a little bit of sense of your background as a Town fan as well. We had a chat earlier and you were talking about fun days at Crawley and Reading, similar to Mikey and I. We were way down Reading. So we've only got an hour, Izzy, so don't go too crazy on Reading.
No, I think you were just trying to like disconnect yesterday when we were talking about it. I think because everyone's had a day at Reading. So I grew up, went to school in Ipswich. I started supporting them the year we actually got relegated last time. So I've really been on this kind of down and an up journey with them. I saw one game when we were in the Premier League, and then kept asking my dad if we could go back. And so we did when we were then in the Championship, or what, I can't even remember what it was called back then. Got a season ticket, and then he got me a season ticket in North Stand. So I was a North Stander for a bit. And kind of didn't really expect to be talking about Ipswich in the Premier League, really. It's quite mental that we're doing this.
It's happened quite a pace, but yeah, we're all of us have had our journeys, haven't we, to get there. So talking of journeys to get there, I'll go back to Mikey on this one. I've kind of done this out of sequence. There's two media professionals here, by the way, and complete muggle over here who's getting things wrong. But someone who's been on that journey to at least in the latter 6 years, Mikey, is Caden Jackson. The guys will be doing a more in-depth assessment of the squad on the Flagship on Sunday. But I thought it was worthwhile us paying tribute. Obviously, Don Ball as well, Panucci Kamara, a few others have been let go. But Caden Jackson's been there for the downs and then the ups. Your thoughts on Caden Jackson?
Well, it's just an incredible story, isn't it? And if it wasn't for Janoy Danassian, it would probably be considered one of the strangest Ipswich Town careers of recent seasons. But yeah, he came in when we were still in the Championship. It was a Paul Hurst signing, wasn't he? He came in and he cost a fair bit of money, but had reasonable pedigree scoring goals in League Two, I believe. I think it was League Two. So he made quite a big step up. And immediately we can see the guy's got loads and loads of pace. But just as quickly we realised that he's not particularly strong in the air and he isn't particularly good with his back to goal. But they carried on playing him in those sorts of positions. He had a good little run alongside James Norwood when we initially got relegated to League One, when we were playing 4-4-F in 2. But like I say, he just categorically could not play with his back to goal as a central striker. But since Kieran McKenna's come in, he's just been so reliable, so adaptable, and he's proven a lot of people wrong, I think, in terms of everybody knew he had pace. Maybe not loads and loads of end product, but I think he's proven a few of us wrong with his football brain, his football IQ. He's obviously a very coachable player. And he's made big contributions. He scored some important goals and he filled in pretty well when we were missing George Hurst before Kiefer Moore came in last season, as we can call it now. Just loads of big contributions and somebody that just kept his head down and just worked really hard. And in the end, won every single one of us over. It's quite a nice story. A little bit of a shame that he couldn't just get one game in the Premier League in his career, but fair play. And I think there'll be plenty of suitors for him in the Championship. Yeah,
agree with that. Yeah, and we wish him all the very best with the next chapter, and hopefully, it's a solid move, maybe to a Championship, decent Championship club. That would be good, wouldn't it? I mean, we need to flag that we've done a good couple of hours on the manager and his situation on the pod in the last week. You can go and watch Ben and Joe, and before that, Craig's reaction before the contract was announced, and Joe and Ben afterwards. But Izzy, I mean, in terms of setting up next season, it is clearly vital that Kieran McKenna stays at Ipswich to give us any kind of chance. And so, along with all the rest of the Blue Army, you must be delighted that that's been sorted.
Yeah, I tweeted out when it was finally confirmed that this is could be one of the great signings of the summer. It was so important, and the saga kind of went on a bit too long for my liking, but I feel like that was actually a good indication to all of us as fans as what the Premier League is like and the spotlight, especially when there's little news going on and you've got, the LMA Manager of the Year wanted by two of the biggest clubs in the country. But when I felt quite deflated when I thought he could be going, and kind of was a little bit negative about the season. But since he's signed the contract, it's done. Not saying that we're going to be finishing in Europe or anything, but I felt a lot more positive.
Well, quote that on your podcast.
Not saying we're not going to, but, but I just feel a lot more positive now about the season, and feel a little bit kind of less scared about going into certain games because we've got him as our manager. And it was crucial that we kept him, really.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that in context later on. And we'll go to the chat because we're aware there's a lot of folk there getting their views in. So we're going to come and say hello to you in a second. But let me set our stall up why we're here. As we said, 22 years is a long time away from the Premier League, and frankly, the top flight, the organisation, the infrastructure around that has changed so dramatically that we need to make some sense of it. So Mikey and Izzy are going to do their best. I'm going to chuck some bits and pieces in as well. We've definitely got time for your questions and thoughts on this too. We're aware that our friends at the Kings of Anglia have done a really great show with Kieran Maguire on finances, so we won't be going too heavy on that, and I'm sure we'll Ben and Kieran will do something for us at some point as well. So we won't be going too big on the FFP PRS stuff, but more about budgets and prize money and how that's changed over the years. We'll talk about the media glare. Izzy's just referred to that. It's something that I think we all need to get used to, the fact that the likes of Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher will have an opinion on how we defended set pieces against so-and-so. That's something that we need to get used to. So we'll try and warm you up to that. Again, Mikey and Izzy have got a great experience of producing media content at football grounds in the Premier League and at Portman Road in Izzy's case. And we know that there are big infrastructure projects underway at Portman Road to make them ready for that. And the guys will give you some understanding as to what that might consist of and what that might need to be. And then I think we'll finish with just an understanding of what we're facing. We've obviously played Fulham and Wolves in the League Cup last season and gave a good account of ourselves, but the Premier League action a little bit different. So we'll get a sense of that and hopefully reassure folk. I'll come to Izzy and get the 5th place prediction. No, she's not going to do that. But I think we'll finish there, and plenty of time for questions and insights as well. But let's say hello to some folk as well. Charlie's with us. I love it when Michael gives us a weather forecast from a very chilly Brisbane, 10 degrees overnight. Minimal sympathy, Michael, but great to have the weather forecast. Mark's here. We've got a friend from up the road here as well. Congratulations on the season. Thank you very much. Paul, Tim's down in sunny Plymouth. Loving that. Sharon's here as well. Streaky here as well. Sun's out in Lowy. Love that. But yeah, good stuff. Good to see a lot of people here. And Matt, good evening, everybody. A treat. This is Premier League royalty in the house. Looking forward to hearing Izzy's insight on the Premier League. Premier League royalty. I can't believe you not start with Mikey. Start with Mikey. Look, he's got the badge on his shirt. So yeah, we love that. And David, best wishes from Helsinki, somewhere you bloody love, Mikey. Nick reminding us we are Premier League. We're gonna continue to I haven't made the logo big enough, really, have I? We're going to continue to remind folk about that. Jules endorsing the golf chat. As always, FBL is here, asked a very good question earlier, which I kind of butchered. Alex, hello, fellow Premier League club fans. That's what we want. FBL Tractor paying tribute to Don Ball. Seems a rock solid guy. Every squad needs them. Hope he gets a good move. Totally agree with that. Tom, watching unwell in bed, but able to relax home. Wish you all the best, Tom. Get well soon. Thank you for joining us and being with us. Mauricio, evening chaos, he says, here for the definite cross. Ouch, Mikey, ouch. We all know what that's about as well. There we go, corrected it. Evening chaps and chapesses, here for the talk about. Mikey's chip, there we go. Second time around. Here we go. ITFC. Hello to ITFC Radio Highlights. Izzy's reaction to us getting promoted after last game in TalkSport was one of the best things I heard last season. He recommends listening again on his channel, where you can also catch other stuff like Craig chatting to Barry Glendinning and Max Rushton, me speaking to Jeff Stelling and Andy Townsend, among other things. I let myself down. They asked me the question. You can pass this feedback on if you want, Izzy. The last question I got asked by Jeff Stelling and Andy Townsend: what signings do you think you need to make? And I was like, oh, I can't say anything. I like everywhere, maybe. I don't know. It was really difficult. Like after the Sunday of promotion on the bank holiday Monday before the parade, thinking about what we might need, but we'll maybe get there tonight. So do chip in with your thoughts and questions. We're going to start with money because I nearly went and did a Desiree there. Money don't make my world go round. Reaching out to the higher ground. I mean, in terms of the change, this is probably the most dramatic, isn't it? I mean, there's a large inflationary aspect to this as well. The cost of living, etc. We all know that the price of stuff goes up, and football is no different on that. But transfer fees, etc., wages. It's worth noting that in terms of the context that Ipswich find themselves in, folks, the two teams that got double bubble promotions to the Premier League, most recently Southampton and Norwich, had only been away for about 8 years. Both coincidentally finished pretty safely in mid-table as well. But that 22 years is a really chunky thing to have to deal with. And prize money now, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, £3.1 million per place that you finish in the league. So anywhere from 3.1 if you finish last to 62.3 million for finishing first. Then add on top of this the TV money, the equity share from both the UK and international TV deals, which was worth 91.7 million. And Mikey, we kind of talked about this briefly before we come in. The international TV deal is more lucrative for the Premier League than the UK one. Is that something that you see in your day-to-day role? We talk about the biggest league in the world, etc. The kind of money kind of talks to that, but similarly, international audience. Do you hear to see that?
Yeah, so obviously working at Premier League Productions, predominantly we're servicing the international audience. So we're always reminded that, the Sky deal's really lucrative and TNT's big as well, but it's just a tiny speck on the global scale. So just to give a little bit of context on the TV side, there's an estimated 913 million households consuming Premier League content. That's a total linear audience of 2.1 billion. 1.16 billion watch exclusively live, and there's another 1 billion who watch the matches sort of highlights or watch it on a delay or watch the magazine shows. Shout out Premier League Preview and Netbusters. And that's 189 countries and 232 broadcaster territories.
Wow.
So it's pretty much everywhere, apart from I'm not going to name the ones that don't have a Premier League TV deal, but there's not many of them. And most will get their content through PLP and the World Feed. So we won't see all of those broadcasters at matches. But now and again, when it's a really big game, so opening night at Portman Road, I expect it to be a night game. You'll see so many people down the side of the pitch from all over the world, which will be really exciting. But then there'll also be games this year where it's just you kind of forget that we're in the Premier League. Like there won't be that much interest when we play Bournemouth at home, for example, and it will just be the usual suspects. You'll see Ian Abrahams there from TalkSport. There'll be one guy there from PLP, and there'll be one from Sky, and we'll have our own athletic reporter as well. We don't know who that's going to be yet. It's not going to be me, but yeah, that's all going to be rather exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, Izzy, have you had situations? Are you anticipating having to fight your way to the coffee machine at halftime? Do you spot that kind of difference in certain fixtures over others?
Yeah, and I noticed it last season. I'd say I brought it in. There's only one coffee machine in the press room, and at halftime when you've only got maybe like 6-7 minutes to play with, and everybody wants to have tea and coffee. But I noticed it as kind of the games went on and we got to the end of the season that more and more journos were turning up. People were bringing kind of bigger teams, and again, like what Mikey was saying, when in the Premier League, you've got a big game where basically along the touchline you just see like all the like different TV channels there, and then it comes to post-match, and usually you can you're waiting 10-15 minutes, whereas when it's a bigger game, you're like half an hour later, you're like, are they going to come out at any point? So yeah, it's especially when it's those bigger games, it just doubles, triples, everything just gets bigger.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the media infrastructure later on, because I'm intrigued to know, well, firstly, how you're going to get access to Kieran McKenna and Sam Morsey over Mikey for a start. We'll do some mediation here straight off the bat, but yeah, it feels like we're going to come to media glare and infrastructure later on. So good prompt for that. I mean, the sums of money, I mean, in the equivalent that I could find on the research. So we said 91.7 million at least. Then there's merit payments based on how many TV appearances you make, as well as the prize money, which increases by £3.1 million per finishing position. So it's just under 59 million toffee crisp for us finishing second again, along with all the TV money. In 0102, sorry, Mikey?
And the Champions League prize money that comes
exactly
with
right. There's bonus for that as well, isn't there? 0102 clubs finishing outside the top 6, which I don't know if anyone remembers what happened in 012, but we finished outside the top 6. But the average money then, I think on TV alone, not the prize money, was 14 million. So that's a huge jump there, 75 million jump on the TV deal alone before you add anything else in. So that's crazy. And then we'll talk about transfer fees as well and get the thoughts of the two here, because the transfer fee was broken when we were in the summer before the 0102 season. Man United signed Juan Sebastian Veron for 28.1 million. And to put that in context, we paid 4.5 million for Matteo Sorini the same summer, but that record's been broken 8 times whilst we've been away, as recently as January 2023. When Chelsea signed Enzo Fernandez from Benfica for, I think, 103 million. So that's the ballpark that we're dealing with last summer.
None of those 3 players are particularly successful.
I need to fill the gaps. Rio Ferdinand was the season after. He did all right at United, didn't he? But yeah, money doesn't make the world go round, maybe, Mikey, to your point. 2.36 billion pounds was spent on fees in the summer window last summer, around the second highest ever. The first highest, or the top most highest was the season before. And that was just money spent, not net spend. In terms of how Ipswich Town might go about spending some of this money that's coming in, some of it will be in advance and some of it throughout the season, of course. So Sheffield United spent about 50 million on Gustavo Hamer, 11 million on Vinny Souza, 5 million on Austin Trusty, someone we briefly linked with him, 4 million on Benny Traore. Izzy, what's your kind of take on Ipswich Town's likely transfer strategy here? Because there is the chuck it up and sign 20 million players that Forest did. There is the kind of scrimp and save Luton model. There is kind of Sheffield United and Burnley, which is kind of sign some superstars from the Championship and hope for the best. And that obviously didn't work out. So what would you be advising Mark Ashton to be doing on his transfer dashboard?
Well, I don't think he'll take any advice from me. But if he wants to take my advice, don't go down the Forest route, because it's just what I was mentioning this earlier to you before we came on. One really key thing also for us next season, and I think being successful next season, is keeping that group togetherness that has worked so well for us over the last 2 seasons. And if you go down the Forest route of just buying definitely one new team, they bought probably nearly 2 new teams, you disrupt that completely. And the players that got us to where we are now, are they going to be happy? You just completely disrupt where we are. I don't want us to go down the Luton, because whilst I want us to be loyal to players, we do need an upgrade. And I know that didn't work for Sheffield United Burnley last season, but I hope we kind of follow that, is that we bring in quality players that are going to improve us, and a couple of them, but we don't disrupt the team too much. So don't go Luton and hardly buy anyone. Don't go Forest and go crazy. Don't do like basically a Paul Cook, really. Don't just buy everyone. Don't do that. And I think also it's something that McKenna would do. I think that one thing that has kept me feeling very positive about next season is that we're very level-headed. Like, the club are very business-minded. They'll know what we need to do. They would have been planning for the Premier League definitely since the beginning of the year, where it looked likely. So they would have had kind of the plan A, plan B, so Premier League, plan Championship. So this isn't just something they've suddenly got to think about. They'll know what they're doing. They would have identified targets of kind of where we need to strengthen. And yeah, I think we need to go down a sensible route. So
a pragmatic route.
Mark, be sensible. Be sensible.
I totally agree with Izzy, but I think it will be Luton who we're most similar to, because the thing is that even if we do the same roughly as what Luton do, we're a much better side than they were when they got promoted. And I think part of their issue was they didn't get enough players in early enough. And I think hopefully that's what we're going to do. Hopefully we're going to get players in before we go to Austria, because I think that's such a huge thing for Kieran McKenna. If he can get these players out on the training pitch with him, he can make them into really good players. And we saw that with Amari Hutchinson last year when he played in the Innsbruck Cup. Didn't look half the player that he did even 2-3 months later, did he? Because he didn't know exactly how we played. But yeah, I think it would probably be most similar to Luton, partly because I don't think we're going to sell any of our key players, which Burnley and Sheffield United both did that. I think Burnley, it was more a case of players had loans that expired. There was quite a few really important players that they lost on the eve of the season. Then Sheffield United just went and sold their two best players, didn't they? And they lost, obviously, Cameron Archer. Sheffield United brought in Cameron Archer at the end of the window, but they'd lost Sander Berg, and there was another one I can't remember. But yeah, they lost a lot of important players and were basically just cashing in on being in the Premier League, which I don't think we'll do. I think we'll give it a go, but we'll be closer to what Luton did than Burnley.
In terms of the number of players, Mikey, as opposed to maybe the fees, because I think all of us are expecting the transfer fee to be broken this summer, right?
Yeah, it's definitely going to get broken. I mean, I can't see how it can't if we're going to sign anyone, because how much was Harmer last year? Did you say?
15 million.
Yeah, and that's from the Championship.
That's right. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
there's
going to be one really big signing, I think, and then there'll be a few others that are probably between 3 and 8 million. But for me, I know this is going to be covered at great length in the next Blue Monday podcast, but I think that we're going to have at least 3 new players starting on the first game of the season.
There you go. Prediction lodged already by Mikey. The other aspect, of course, is wages. Got some estimates from a site called Capology that estimated that Luton's wage bill last season was 24.6 million. By reference, our wage bill in the 22-23 season was 19.8 million pounds in our account. So not a drastic leap there. Obviously, we recruited from the Premier League anyway to bolster our Championship squad and didn't do a massive amount of recruitment, though I suspect the loan deals for Hutchinson and Moore would have been pretty costly, but it ramps up significantly from Luton. Burnley's wage bill was 38 million. Brentford's just above them, 39. Palace, team close to Mikey's heart, were 12th highest in the wage league table, as it were, 69 million. Man United was top with 205 million in wages. City below them in 200. Arsenal 166. Those are eye-watering sums of money, aren't they, Izzy? Do you expect Kieran McKenna to be the highest paid member of staff by the end of the summer, or do you expect we might have beaten that record as well?
I think he would be.
Yeah,
I think he would be. I'm guessing, because then also if you're suddenly bringing in players, I know I keep going back to this whole not wanting to disrupt the kind of team morale, but if you suddenly bring in players and they're earning double what Colin Chaplin or whoever's earning, then that can also be disruptive. So
I guess the argument to that is surely some new deals for the key players is going to be imminent as well. Everyone's talking about Leif Davis. I mean, you might not enhance your wage bill by recruitment, you might do it through retention. I guess that's a distinct possibility here as well, right?
Yeah, I expect they'll want to look at just to protect the assets. So if we do need to sell these, we get a better price. But yeah, and I think they're kind of deserving of, for what they've done. You wouldn't begrudge Leif Davis getting a pay rise or anything like that. So yeah, I'd like to see a couple of contract extensions as well to a couple of our key players. Yep.
Agree with that. Let's go back to the chat briefly. Martin quite rightly mentions there's kind of a virtuous circle here. There's definitely a lot more scrutiny. I think the fact that the university have got a sponsorship deal with the club, I think they're sponsoring the stand. I've forgotten already, but they've got a deal, haven't they, with the club? The interest and the awareness of Ipswich as a place is going to increase. So to Martin's point, we're already getting 30,000 crowds in the last season or so anyway. So match day revenue probably not a great deal increased. I can talk about it now. Football shirts is something I'm worried about, folks. Ipswich Town shirts the last few seasons under £9, nearly 50 quid. Umbro make West Ham's kits as well. That was a comparable size club that I went looking for, and their shirts were 75 quid. So I guess match day revenues and prices might go up for the match day experience, but Martin's right that we saw it last time around almost 20 years ago. There was definitely a big impact on the local economy and people just knowing where we are and The fact we're quite close to London is also pretty helpful as well. FPL, the international element seems the biggest change, he says. It's the World's League now. No 102, the England's league. Yeah, I agree with that. A few people kind of talking about PRS and all that kind of stuff. It's a challenging one to understand because Ipswich have been in the EFL for 2 seasons. It's a 3-year rolling situation there. The losses that you're allowed to make in the EFL are capped at 13 million. In the Premier League, it's 35. So that will limit Ipswich's loss-making ability. But if you generate the revenue, that's less of an issue. But I think that's one for another day. Streaky suggesting we won't go above 75 million pound spend. But yeah, I think that's a rabbit hole that I'm not equipped to be able to deal with. But yeah, good stuff. Yeah, a lot of agreement with Izzy and Mikey in the chat, which is always good. Chris asks, maybe we'll come back to this one. Yeah, I'll star that one and we'll come back to it because about the competition that we're facing, I think that's a really good question about is it just to survive, to get that all important second season? It's probably right, but let's come back to that one, shall we? I'll star that one so we don't forget it, Chris. Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff in the chat that, yeah, be nice to each other in the chat. Let's go into infrastructure, I think. Let me stick another banner up because I've done some preparation for tonight. I think football operations is kind of where I want to go to next. I mean, this is more about infrastructure, and therefore this is kind of scratching Izzy's coffee itch and all that kind of stuff. I mean, Tom asks, we kind of talked about this briefly, aside from domestic and global media that will be allowed at our matches, are there some lesser known and perhaps surprising guests organisation that the club will be obliged to let in Portman Road? Any insights on that, or are you just expecting the kind of usual suspects media-wise, folks? There's a shaking of heads there.
Yeah. I don't know who these like surprise people would be. I'm intrigued to kind of what he thought the surprise people would be.
No, fair enough.
But
it wouldn't surprise me if whoever Ipswich's MP is will make appearances and things like that. Okay. Maybe more so just to get on the telly. Keir Starmer was recently at the Manchester United Arsenal game, but Matt Lucas was there. Mo Farah's at Arsenal games, but to be honest, I can't really see. Yeah, I'm with Izzy on this one. I can't really see there being a huge influx of just add-ons, I suppose. But there will be an incredible amount of media, and there will be people as well that you see and you think, what are they doing?
Because, why are you here?
Yeah, and to be fair, that might be pointed at me because I might look like I'm not doing a lot of the time, which is completely fair.
In terms of these infrastructure projects, then it feels like the day-to-day. Well, I guess that's a question as well. I'll start with you, Mikey, on this one. In terms of orchestrating a football match, from a fan perspective, apart from maybe the new away allocation that might need some cobbled, consideration, hosting a game of football, is it drastically different compared to the EFL? There's different players of a much higher stature. There's maybe some big egos. There's definitely some money and wages being spent on some really top players. Are we likely to just have Erling Haaland and co rock up to the usual bus depot at Portman Road, or are we going to have to roll out the red carpet and all that jazz?
Well, but based on what I've seen at some other grounds, I don't think it will be hugely different with that sort of thing, like where the buses turn up. I mean, I've heard that at the moment the media, towards the end of the season when there was more media, and maybe Izzy can confirm this, the media had to go into the players' lounge, so there was no players' lounge. So presumably maybe that's wrong. Maybe I've just got that one a little bit wrong. But
I didn't get the invite. Why didn't I get to go in there? Maybe that's where the coffee was.
Or maybe that is where the new press room is going to be. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's going to be some, like there'll be a match manager at every game, and presumably there is in the EFL as well, but they're a lot more visible in the Premier League. It will be a man in a Premier League coat, and he'll ultimately be the one that gives the nod to the referee for kickoff time and things like that, and he'll be the one that decides who's going where and which media people can speak to these people at this time. There's so much paperwork that goes into it, and especially for the big games. So obviously we don't unfortunately, Norwich didn't get up to the Premier League, did they, Rich? So
They're
we're not
not.
going to have that game as we'll call that a Category A fixture for us. Our Category A fixture will be potentially on the last day of the season if we're looking to stay up, or potentially if we're the team that's facing Manchester City on the last day of the season, they're going for league or something like that. But definitely also for our first home game of the season, where the world's media will be there, and that will be treated as such, and there'll be so many people there. I guess the VAR screen, where's that going to go? Will that be over at the cobbled side? That will look slightly different. They're going to, as you mentioned, they'll be increasing the capacity. There'll be more stewards, more police. They won't just be doing things in the cheapest way possible. There'll be a minimum requirement. I know minimum requirement, I suppose, is the cheapest way possible, isn't it? But yeah, it's going to look pretty different, and there'll be loads more camera spots around the ground as well. Every
6
game
to
will
40,
have,
isn't it? I think he said, Mark Ashton.
What was that? Sorry.
6 positions to 40 positions, I think.
Yeah,
Mark
6 to 40. So it'll be 40. I mean, I can't see it going up to 40. Maybe on opening night, I can't see how they'll do the spider cam at Portman Road. I think the ground's slightly too uneven, but yeah, I mean, that's going to be something for us to enjoy. Is when we do score a nice goal, there's going to be so many different ISO angles,
Yeah.
and then also the cameras on the touchline, like we see in Town in 5. There'll be those as well. They're called ENG cameras. So they might be filming in slow motion. There'll be a high-mo camera filming everyone, just isolated shots in slow-mo. So just the production will look, well, like the big Sky Championship games, but like that for every single game, and sometimes a little bit extra.
Michael asked how many people Sky bring to a game in total. I mean, I assume it's different from the Championship to the Premier League. I mean, we're going to have Kelly Cates, Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher sat on the pitch, aren't we, for games? I mean, I guess we had some of that last season, didn't we? But I assume the infrastructure, and Izzy, do you know about this one, about, you know, how many people Sky bring? I mean, even for you and your team, is it a different level of undertaking for a Premier League game compared to a EFL game for you?
Yeah, so if we're doing commentary of it, so it depends where it falls in our commentary slots. But if it's our 12:30, which is our big commentary on a Saturday, we bring, so somebody like myself as the producer. We'll have our presenter, Reshmin Chowdhury, and we'll have commentator and a pundit. And sometimes we bring an extra, depending on the game, might bring an extra pundit, and you might have a reporter there as well. Wow. Whereas sometimes last season we didn't have anyone. Because we kind of picked and choose depending on how important a game was, whether to even send a reporter to it. I don't know in terms of like numbers for Sky, but there's a lot of them when I see them there. And every game for us now will have a reporter. Doesn't matter whether we're playing, you know, Bournemouth, as Mike mentioned earlier, like one of the games that people might not be that interested in. We'll always have a reporter there. And then, as I say, sometimes, and then if it's a commentary game, you've got kind of 4 or 5 people, which I know doesn't sound a lot when you kind of compare it to TV, but for us it's a lot of people on site when sometimes we don't send anybody. So, and we'll also be doing longer build-ups to games. So whereas before we might just go on with half an hour's build-up, we now have 1.5 hours build-up, an hour's build-up, so much more built in around it, features, interviews and all of that. So there's so much more goes into our production around a Premier League game.
And are you, I guess you're used to dealing with maybe a couple of people at Ipswich Town. We know a lot of, you know, our friends. Andy Warren has been involved since last season. There's a few guys doing media content. Obviously, Marcus Nash's role as well, but that presumably that team is going to need to be so much more around media relations, maybe than public relations, perhaps. And is that a factor as well that you're expecting new people to deal with, or the club are going to have to, you know, be able to deal with all of this interest?
I hope so, just for them, because they were worked off their like socks last year with everything. So I hope so for them. And yeah, because again, media requirements will go up. So for a game on a Saturday last season, you might just be the local media who do the press conference. So that would be Kieran and whichever player they choose. But now papers are going to want to do features, and they're going to want to speak to the players, the manager. So they want to do individual interviews. If it's our game, and I think we kind of share this a bit with PLP, but we have a thing called ICS. So
international
they
content sessions.
There you go.
International content sessions was that?
Yeah.
He knows what it all stands for. We just call it ICS. And that's every club has to put up a player for interview. So again, and then basic media organizations apply for it, and sometimes you get rejected. Bigger clubs usually reject us a lot, but then we'll share audio from the PLP. So that's again another extra media commitment, which the club will also need to staff for it. So I mean, I don't know whether they are looking for someone, but I would think they should be, because just to kind of help with the increased pressure of people wanting. Well, everyone, especially in the first couple of weeks, because we're this new club, and if we do well, people are going to want more from it. They're going to want to find out more about what is Ipswich, what makes Ipswich, what's so great about it. Why, if we are doing well, why are we doing so well? So that increases. Yeah, because you have the interest in us.
You have the kind of weird situation where no one really cared about us in the Championship, and now suddenly we are one of 20 that everyone's going to need to figure out. And so you can imagine, and that Mikey presumably it's not quite 24/7, but for them from your demands, the ICS type demands. I'm using the lingo now. That is presumably most of the week, and obviously games Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday going forward. So you'll have to be doing your content creation prior to those matches as well. So it becomes kind of a full-time thing, doesn't it? Whereas in the Championship, definitely not.
Yeah. So there's as Izzy mentioned, there's going to be the club media day, which I think that will be the press conference, which will probably be done on a Friday morning, or I think the latest that it can start is at 2 p.m. on a Friday. So that will be Kieran McKenna. Hopefully they'll do it on a Thursday. It makes it easier for the broadcasters, doesn't it? But it will probably be done on a Friday morning or Friday lunchtime. And then I think that's when the newspapers can request to speak with a player as well, and that sort of thing. But the international content sessions, that's a commitment that they'll have to put Kieran McKenna forward a few times a season as well. And they'll have to put a player forward for every single match week. So in the weeks where you at Christmas, for example, you might end up having 3 ICS sessions in the space of 4 days because they need to get them in before Christmas. And then you find Connor Chaplin might find himself in a position where he's having to talk about the New Year's Eve game before he's even played the Boxing Day game, just to use that as an example. But these content sessions are very much so all of the Premier League broadcasters can kind of put a bid in for them. And I think what they generally do is, if, for example, we put up Hladky, they'll give priority to the Czech broadcaster. And if we put up Morsey, then beIN Sport in the Middle East will be able to lead on that session. And then they'll TalkSport might get a slot there as well if they put in for him. And it will probably be quite easy for TalkSport most of the time to get a slot, because let's face it, a lot of these Ipswich players aren't going to be, they're not going to be requested, all the English lads. Harry Clark's not going to be requested by the Finnish broadcaster, for example. But there'll be some really good content made as well. And we haven't spoken about social media yet. PLP will, if there's a player that has a good personality, let's use Wes Burns as an example. Not many international broadcasters are going to put in for Wes Burns. And if somebody in the digital department at Premier League Productions knows that he's a good character, they'll make some funny content with him. And that will go up onto Premier League's Instagram. And then there's 75 million followers on there. So there's going to be so many eyes on us all of a sudden. Just to use Brentford as the example, because Brentford is kind of they're who we're striving to be like, but I don't think anyone can deny that we're a bigger football club than them. We have 273,000 followers on Twitter. That's gone up massively recently, and 485,000 on Instagram. Brentford have got 367 on Twitter, which is almost 100,000 more, and 696,000 on Instagram. So our numbers are probably going to almost double if we're in the Premier League for a couple of seasons, which is just going to change the face of this football club for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
That's the real quiz, isn't it? And clearly Instagram is where I should be exploiting much more of Blue Monday's content. I'm not giving it enough attention. Izzy, in terms of, I'm going to kind of wrap a couple of bits into one here. Your perspective of the challenge of a manager and a player that's had to deal with, Mikey and then, a myriad of other people, and then they come to you guys afterwards. Can you talk to us about that challenge, and then give us a sense of what you hope? We've kind of already mentioned it briefly, but what you're hoping will be the upgraded commentary area in the it'll be the West End, won't it? The Pioneer Stand for old money. What you're hoping to see there, because that probably needs a little bit of a lick of paint too, doesn't it? But start with managing I don't know, maybe slightly wearied members of football staff who are all interviewed out.
So we try to be really creative. So because we realize if you go into every one of these interviews and go look back, look forward type thing, they get quite bored of that. So when we go for these sessions, we try, like what Mikey was saying, you try and find out a little bit more about the player. So we'll do some research into their background. If we find out something that's unique, so Manuel Akanji is really good at maths. So you go and you don't bother to ask him, how did you find the game against Chelsea, blah, blah. You ask him maths questions and they engage more. That you just immediately engage them. So with those content sessions, that's what you try and do. And because otherwise, you're just doing the boring preview, review type thing that they do get bored of, because they'll be doing it day in, day out. So improving the press box. I do, you know what? It's something that I love about going to grounds is press boxes, because they're all unique in their own ways. And the one at Portman Road it's very roomy. It's great. I've got space and everything. Yeah, you go to Fulham.
I'm surprised.
And no, it's really roomy up there. Like, I've got space to like move about a little bit. I say you go to Fulham, you're like wedged in. And I always say, like, once you're in, you don't leave. And you've got literally fans sat right behind you. I had, I realize I am about to drop a name here, but I had Damien Lewis once sat, literally his knee was going to knock me in the head if he got up. And I had different game, but I had Hugh Grant right in front of me once. That's how close you are to the fans. So I just thought I'd drop a few names on the pod if this is my only chance.
That's fine. I mean, we love actors. So it's all good.
Hugh Grant and Damien Lewis. Those are my name drops. So it is, you've got great space. The space on the desk is great. Again, some places you go to, they're tiny, don't fit your equipment. My main thing is, because at Portman Road, it is an old stadium, we've got a pillar right in the way. So it does mask one of the goals if you sit. It depends. So I have to kind of maneuver people, and you can't see the like the side of the pitch and the corner flag down by the tunnel. So there's just a few little things that look improvement. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do, because again, with now that there's going to be so many more press, like the game against Huddersfield, we had loads of written press there, and they were like struggling to fit them all in. So that's how kind of they'll have to expand that section, and you've got kind of like Henry Winter turning up and you're trying to find a space for him. But because of the interest in the club, they will have to expand that. So I have no idea what they're going to do. They're obviously not going to reveal anything, but maybe just they might need to improve the seats a little bit,
Comfier seats, you mean?
Yeah, just something and a bit more space. And
do you need a monitor? You were talking about monitors.
Yes.
Before.
I think there'll be monitors, won't there?
Do we?
Yeah,
they'll
need
them
to.
Surely for
with VAR.
Yeah, I was going to go to the V word. Yeah. So should we go there now?
Rich, there's also going to be written press that have to just sit in the press room because there's no seats for them.
So they'll have to have presumably put a match feed for them as well.
Yeah, there'll be a match feed in there. They'll probably have Sky and TNT and whatever in there. But yeah, I've noticed that at a few games that I've worked at, because I have to be in the press room during some of the game, and there's a lot of journalists that have to just sit there and watch it on the telly, which is
you travelled all that way. You could have just stayed at home. But let's deal with VAR. It kind of feels like, in terms of the fan experience, which is kind of where we're going to end up going towards before we say goodbye to everyone. And we've got plenty of time, by the way. I've marked some questions to come back to, but locked. So please do get them in and chip in. And I think Nick has mentioned that one of the infrastructure areas, I think the club mentioned, is bringing the press area forward in the West stand. So keep an eye on that one, Izzy, and hopefully the comfy seats and the monitor for VAR. The vote on the future of VAR is tomorrow as we record it, Thursday. The Wolves motion, which needs 14 votes to carry. And Mikey, it sounds like that 14 votes is probably too high a hurdle for Wolves to reach, do you think? And therefore VAR is likely to be retained. And but I think there are clubs keen to reform it, aren't there?
Yeah, almost certainly. It's just the arrogance of some of these clubs. They just assume that all the decisions go against them, but nobody else. So they think that they can get an advantage through having VAR. That is my personal opinion, not the opinion of VLP. Point out
all the Blue Monday podcast.
Currently in between contracts anyway. But yeah, you can't trust people, Rich. That's the problem. It's going to a vote, isn't it? And I was trying to count up who I thought might vote, and I could probably get 6 clubs that are guaranteed.
We're likely
it's just not going to happen. So next season we're going to have to get over we're just going to have to accept the fact that we're going to over celebrate a goal that's going to be we're going to over celebrate hopefully quite a few goals that are going to be ruled out. Just keep your powder dry when we've just scored. Don't start with the who are yous at the away fans straight away. That's all I'm going to say. And there'll also be goals, unfortunately, and this is the real sad thing, there's going to be goals that we don't really celebrate because we're expecting it to be ruled out by VAR, or initially the referee makes a decision and then we get it because of VAR, which, I mean...
Bonus goals, you mean?
Yeah, there'll be bonus goals, but there's also going to be goals that we're like, oh, this is probably going to get ruled out and we're not going to celebrate properly, which is a huge shame and just goes against everything that I think is special about football. But having worked at a few games the last couple of seasons, there are a few background checks that happen that you don't even really notice, and that isn't a huge problem. But one thing I will say, just to bring it back to our team specifically, how VAR is going to affect us, we're going to have to defend set pieces completely differently because we foul players every single corner and every single free kick, and we just won't be able to get away with it with VAR. I'm fully expecting Kieran McKenna to get us to defend in a different way. That might also mean that we need to have a goalkeeper that comes and collects crosses from set pieces, and that's not really what we had last year.
Yeah, really interesting observation, that, Mikey. Izzy, do you want to give your professional opinion or your personal opinion on VAR? I know that you could turn your microphone around if you wanted to, but you don't need to.
Look, I think we know it's going to be here to stay for next season. Although we do get a vote on it, so you never know. But and as Mikey says, we are going to celebrate goals that are going to get ruled off. We're going to have things go against us. There's going to be a penalty that will go against us. That isn't a penalty. You know, Wes Burns' toenail is going to be offside, or his elbow is going to be sticking out a little bit, and that gets ruled offside. We will hopefully have stuff that also kind of goes for us. I think as fans who haven't experienced it in the stadium, so they will put it on the screen. And I did read up that they are going to have it so that the mics are not the mics, the refs are mic'd up. Sorry, so they haven't been before. So it just kind of comes up as some big reveal on the screen, whether it's the decision's been ruled or not. But they say that the refs are going to be mic'd up, so you'll be able to hear the decision instead of having to look at the screen. I've had VAR decisions that I haven't had to wait that long for. Some have been kind of 3-4 minutes, and it's, you know, when you're there and you're trying to discuss it, which is why we need monitors to be able to see so that we can discuss it on the radio. But yeah, you can see the fans just getting annoyed, especially if it's a goal they've scored and they don't know whether it's been given or not. You are going to have so many podcasts where we talk about VAR. Okay, just everyone's going to have to deal with that. You might have to have a section that's just, you know, the VAR
swear jar.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just, unfortunately, as a Premier League club, it's something that we're going to have to deal with. And it's here. I know there's the vote on it. It may not be here next season, but likely it is going to be here. And just going to have to, as Mikey says, try not to celebrate, but yeah, we may have to suddenly sit back down again or stop singing or whatever.
Or maybe
yeah.
get to celebrate again. Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's a good league table of, I think Wolves obviously -7 points, I think it was, in terms of VAR interventions against them. Otherwise, there wasn't a huge amount of correlation. I think Wolves have been quite right to raise the motion, but obviously very specific to their circumstance. I think a few others, you'd expect to see Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal up there, but Man City, but they're kind of clustered around mid-table. It's kind of, there is a league table there that you can find. I should have put it on the screen, but I forgot. One of the things I forgot to do, but we should see how things go on Thursday and how the club vote or whether they choose to abstain and don't want to upset the new their new league peers, perhaps. But in terms of the general fan experience, before we kind of talk about the competition and how we think Town will get on next season, anything that you guys want to cover on that? I mean, away allocations, I guess more tickets may be available in most games, but it was obviously a bugbear of a lot of people, Town fans, last season, is getting to away games. Ticket prices as well. This is going to be something that we're going to need to get used to in terms of maybe more tickets, but the Leeds price got a lot of attention, Mikey. But
actually, Rich, the away tickets certainly last year were capped at £32.
Okay.
Which is obviously a nice thing, but I was in a ridiculous position where I was spending more money on away tickets in League One than my wife was to watch Premier League games at some of the biggest grounds. But yeah, the issue is that a lot of games last year we'd have a huge away allocation because the opposition weren't particularly fussed. Like use Preston and Blackburn as an example. We're not going to get that. We'll get a big allocation at the biggest stadiums, but I think we'll be looking at about 3,000, 3,500 for every game. And then occasionally there'll be a Bournemouth where you get 1,800, I think, in their little ground that they still haven't made any improvements on in the years that they've been in the Premier League.
Dig.
Yeah.
That's your second Bournemouth dig.
And there'll be more as we go on.
We're going to talk about the competition.
We need to find out about this.
I'm fully on board with the Bournemouth hate, by the way. Plucky Bournemouth.
Why?
That really annoyed me in 14-15. But
what? They're a great club to deal with.
There you go.
From a media perspective. That there's when I was lucky enough to go and do an interview with Gary O'Neill when he was still there. And I was like, oh, this is such a nice setup. Like you can just go and because these international content sessions that we've mentioned a couple of times, the ICSs, they'll generally be done at the training ground. But at Bournemouth, they train next to the stadium. So you do the interviews in the changing rooms, which is quite cool.
I will say I like Bournemouth because the guy on the door, so when you come in as a media, you have to pick up your accreditation. The guy who you get your accreditation from has a bag of Kit Kats and everyone in the media gets Kit Kats. So I am like fully on board with Bournemouth, okay? They give you a Kit Kat as you come in. See, I'm easily sold. Easily sold.
Kit Kats is the way to Izzy's heart. There we go. Keep that one in the memory bank in case you need it for blackmail purposes. I mean, in terms of the wider fan perspective, interested to get the thoughts in the chat for this. Very quickly noting time. One thing that you are both looking forward to seeing Ipswich feature in that they don't currently feature in. I'm thinking FPL, I'm thinking FC25 it will be, I guess. And there'll be a top, it's not Panini, the top sticker album at some point, match attacks, all of this kind of stuff. Anything you're looking forward to in particular? The Premier League badge on the shirt, Mikey?
Yeah, I suppose that would be nice. I think, Joe's kids are really looking forward to having that because obviously the Championship had a betting logo on, so you couldn't have that on the shirt.
Okay.
I haven't played FIFA for many years, but I'm considering buying it just because I know it's not called FIFA anymore because Portman Road's going to be on there. And all of my teenage years, I was thinking, if we go up this year, I'll be playing at Portman Road next year. It never happened. I'm also seriously considering doing the stickers, Rich, which is pathetic, really, because I didn't even do that in 2001.
I love a sticker album.
Yeah.
So there'll be plenty of swapsies. Get your thoughts in the chat. What you're looking forward to. Izzy, what's your shout?
Again, the shirt, because I've got a League One with the Championship, so Premier League. But for me, being in the match of the day montage, who are they going to pick as well? They got to pick somebody for it. So Neil, I agree with you. And I think seeing them for the first time on, because I haven't seen them on Match of the Day, if I'm being honest, because I didn't support them the last time we were on it. So yeah, seeing them for the first time on Match of the Day would be great. But yeah, the montage, because I'm even though I work in radio, I'm creative. I love all that montage stuff. I love a good montage. I love a good montage. What can I really enjoy your montage at the beginning of this. Honestly, I love that stuff.
I'll slow it down
That's
for you and send it to you. But yeah,
that's the nerd part.
No, all of us are nerds. That's why we're here. But the other thing would be great, and I loved it when the Premier League did the locked-in thing when Southampton won the playoff final, and our badge was there on Monday Night Football. Our badge will be behind the team on Monday. You know, all of that nerdy stuff. So get your thoughts in. We'll finish with final questions.
That will wind people up though, Rich, when we do, because we will have a couple of Monday night games, and they'll be talking about Man City and Arsenal. They won't talk about us until 5 minutes before kickoff. That will get on people's goats, I'm sure.
There you go. You've been warned about that. I think our job here is just kind of pre-warn you to the experience. But we've got a few more minutes. We'll go over time a little bit extra. Mark's mentioning the Premiership with Desline when they got our wrong badge for about a month before they finally changed it.
We were on Match of the Day the season before 2000-2001 was just before it switched over
with the correct badge as well. Exactly right. A few things to bring your attention to before we finish off. Our promo with NordVPN, you can still avail yourself of that. The link in the description. A little bit of a discount and a kickback to us as well. So everybody wins there. If you're watching this before Friday evening and want to join us, Neil Warnock live at Ipswich Region. Are you with me? Do give us a shout, especially if you want a discounted promo ticket. We can sort that out for you via a Telegram group. If you want to join the Telegram and debate transfers endlessly, seemingly without any kind of filter of quality, I'm joking. Join via Blue Monday, ITFC.co.uk. There's a link there. 2-week free trial and then a subscription afterwards. But hopefully there'll be a good amount of Euros chat, Premier League swaps, all that kind of stuff will be happening over there. So do get involved in Telegram. In terms of Blue Monday content, as we said, it'll be a little bit more ad hoc for the remaining months whilst we warm up for the new season. But we've got our McKenna reaction still available, the 2-part season review. Definitely recommend that. Some really lovely feedback. So thank you for that as well. And on the Flagship Show on Sunday, we're back normal time, 8 p.m. live. Craig and Joe are concocting something about squad depth and transfers. So if, unlike me, transfers tickle you and excite you, then 8 p.m. on Sunday is where to be. As always, if you're watching on YouTube, do give us a thumbs up. We appreciate that. And a subscribe. Plenty of Premier League content coming your way and podcast as well. Subscribe there and do give us a 5-star rating. Very much appreciated as well. Very briefly, guys, let's talk about the competition. I'll start with you, Izzy, because we kind of teased this at the start. You're confident of the McKenna effect. How confident are you, and which teams are you kind of pitching us around an area? Is it 17th you're hoping for, or is something better possible?
I think first and foremost, we just have to look at, if we're 17th, that's brilliant. And I think anything more is a bonus for us. I mean, I'd love to say mid-table, but I'm not going to. I'm going to try and stay realistic on this one. But yeah, staying up would be brilliant. I think it would be celebrated just as much as, getting promoted really for us. And yeah, I was trying to think about, because, there are some, Man City, Arsenal, these kind of big teams, they are the kind of scary teams, but there's a lot of transition going on in the Premier League, whether it be new managers. There's quite a lot of new managers going in. Clubs that have reached a level. So if we look at kind of Brentford and Brighton, they've reached a level, and what's their next level? Can they make it? And then you obviously got Southampton and Leicester with us, but you've got the kind of clubs I don't really know what they're going to do. You look at kind of Bournemouth and Forest, Fulham. I don't really know about Fulham. So I think there is like a bigger chat to have on this because there's so much to go into. But when I kind of look at next season, there's not too much to be scared about. Obviously, these clubs are all, and the teams and the players are all better than ours. But I have real hope that McKenna, because of the way he thinks, and he doesn't just go into games and go, right, well, we'll just play how we play. he really tailors the team to the opposition as well. You know, you've seen when he's changed out defenders because of the strikers that we're going to be facing. He's changed out strikers because of the defenders we're going to be facing. So I'm quietly confident. I mean, it could all change within a month and we're losing heavily and it's all horrible and we're hating the Premier League and we just want to be in the Championship
not
again.
at this stage.
No,
it's still the summer, Izzy.
But I know with there's a new lease of life since McKenna's signed his contract. I'm going into this and I'm trying to think, because also a lot of people have been telling me that we're just basically going to be like Burnley and Sheffield United and get beaten every week. And I'm trying to convince them it's not going to be like that. So this is also me convincing myself. But there is a bigger chat to kind of go into more depth and looking at these teams and looking at kind of what is next, you know, where are they positioned? What are they doing? These new managers, you know, there's a much wider chat, which I know
we'll come back to it. Maybe.
So we probably, I think we'll know more once obviously signings have been made. You know, for example, I'll just really quickly, you know, you look at Palace, finish the season brilliantly, but could lose their two best players. So and I say you can't say until the season starts. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, but I am going into the season confident.
Mikey, do you share Izzy's thoughts that there is a lot of maybe uncertainty, but also that maybe from outside you fixate on the big six or even City, Arsenal, and actually there is below that we can be quite competitive. Is that your sense as well? There's quite a lot of, ignoring our hate for Bournemouth, there's a lot of, you know, beatable teams in there.
Yeah, it's not hate. Yeah, I've got reasons for optimism as well. One of them being having Kieran McKenna, as Izzy says, like just such an intelligent manager. We might not have better players than most of the league, but we're gonna have a better manager than almost all of them, in my opinion. Last season and next season could be similar. There could be more points deductions. This isn't some sort of inside scoop, but there's every chance that there's at least two teams that start the season on minus points. And last year, 27 points was enough to stay up. 35 is generally the magic number. And for context, when we got relegated in 2002, we had 36. And that was a pretty poor season. We were playing in Europe. I think this team is better than the one then, but obviously times have changed, haven't they? Leicester were bottom with 28 in 2002, which was poor at the time, but would have been enough to stay up last season. Arsenal were the top scoring team Arsenal won the league that year with 79 goals. 5 teams scored more than that last season. The landscape has changed exponentially. There's more goals being scored every season. There's barely any 0-0s. But yeah, basically, if we get 9 wins and 9 draws, we'll stay up. And I think we're more than good enough to do that. I think we're going to finish around 14th or 15th.
There you go. Lovely stuff.
Okay.
I feel like if I'm listening or watching to this, Mikey, I've got Dumb and Dumber in my head. So you're telling me there's a chance. Good stuff. Let's go with, we need to say thank you to Carbos. And I assume, is that Norwegian something? I don't know. Need to tell us what a knock is, but there's 100 of whatever knock is. So thank you so much, Carbos, for your support of the podcast. Looking forward to the new shirt and the fixture list, he says, and we will definitely have plenty of reaction to that. But thank you so much for your support. If you want to do likewise, there's a button in YouTube, but the thumbs up, we very much appreciate that currency as well. I thought it was a krona, but euros and all that stuff, Neil, just confuses me. But thank you, Carbos, very much appreciate that. Let's do some quick fire questions before we say goodbye. I think we've dealt with Chris's question about just survive. I think the target has to be that, doesn't it? But we feel that more is possible. I think that's the short of it. A few people asking us about Town TV. Mikey, do you want to deal with this one? It feels like certainly live matches is probably no longer possible, is it?
I think live matches is out of the question, unfortunately. But the international audience will. So our fans overseas, Michael Warner, for example, if he gets an Optus Sport subscription, he'll be able to watch every Ipswich game, as far as I'm aware.
Perfect. So there's options, isn't there?
Yeah, there's options out there, and so many of our games are going to be on telly. But yeah, we might find ourselves in a position again where if we're not at the game and it isn't on telly, we might have to listen to local radio again, which isn't a bad thing.
Talk sport.
And Talk Sport as well. But obviously,
There
Talk
you
Sport
go.
won't be doing every
Well played.
single, or will he be doing every single game? One way or another.
Not
On the
commentary wise, but we do. No, not commentary wise. But there's also anyone who's out there. There's a Talksport International, and they do every game. So Saturday they have commentaries of every game. So
Yeah, and
There
that
you
will
go.
be much more affordable than buying, for example, the Norwegian broadcaster, I'm sure.
That being said, we have a NordVPN promo going on, but I don't. Just as an aside, I'm just chucking it out there. Don't forget to watch the
we're
Flagship Show on
like
Sunday.
conflict now, aren't we?
Yeah,
We're all
no,
like
let's
trying to throw out our
professional. This is what we want. Porksmouth, isn't the semi-auto offside system coming in next season? Do either of you guys know about that? Is it this
I
season? or
read
next?
up a bit on that. I think there's discussions. Again, that might be something to discuss tomorrow in this
yeah.
Okay.
meeting.
Wait
But yeah,
and
it's
see.
something to help with VAR and that to make the because sometimes a game with an offside you could be waiting ages, so it's to speed up the decision. So I
Okay.
think that's something that they're going to put forward as a kind of let's keep it and look how we can make it better for you guys type thing.
And on that, I think we've had this before as well. I think the club have had some referees consulting or doing something. Are you aware of that as well, Izzy or Mikey, about refs briefing clubs before the
They
season starts?
generally, yeah, they generally do something just to kind of go over any new rule changes and
Okay.
just to make sure that everyone's on board with, all the rules, how it's going to work. And I'm sure, especially with with VAR coming in, that they'll be sitting down because our players won't know maybe how to deal with it, how it's dealt with. So yeah,
Yeah, they
it's
need to be
generally what they
told
do.
the cameras will see everything.
Yeah.
You will
And
not
Kieran
get
McKenna and
away.
the
Yeah.
coaching staff will also be invited down to Stockley Park for a VAR masterclass as well. So
Right.
they'll get the inside scoop and all of that, and maybe some of the members of the Ipswich media team and local media as well.
Can you get us in there, Mikey? That'd be good, wouldn't it? Moving on quickly. FBI Tractor, can Mikey/Izzy say if the old line that the media like VAR because it adds more controversy is true? Do you want me?
I was
didn't read.
hoping you
I
would come
didn't,
back to us because
I
Go on,
didn't
Izzy.
read it before I put it down. Now, FBI is usually
If you-
trustworthy, but he has put you under the bus a little bit here, hasn't he?
Now, if you listen to TalkSport, you know that we talk about VAR a lot. This whole thing about how we like it. It's a lot of people on our station that don't like it, and
Balance.
there have been many debates. So no, there's no kind of media bias towards it at all.
There you go. Moving swiftly on. Blaga 101. I live in Spain and I've had season ticket at Almira for 10 plus years. We've had VAR in Spain for the top two divisions, 5 seasons, except as part of the game. It's no big deal. Essentially, he's saying we're making a big fuss about it and he's spot on. So hopefully some common sense will prevail tomorrow and some reform to use it properly. FBL Tractor also coming back with swaps at the ground every week as well. Quite agree with that. Chris is looking forward to getting discussed on all the fancy Premier League YouTube shows. Isn't there like a Saturday morning Sky thing as well? So yeah, and I think it's now on Sky Sports. And usually they talk about FPL. So I feel like if there's a podcast about the prices of the players as well that maybe we need to consider as well. Martin
Ipswich will have some sleepers, some fancy sleepers.
I'm hoping Leif Davis will be like a 5 million kind of player because he'll assist King. Martin, looking forward to the Blue Monday preview show, talking about Haaland, Saka, Salah instead of legal. Here, Martin, me too. Jules, I started Sporting Town when we were in the Premier League. Used to watch in the ground, then go home and watch match of the day to see it again. Amazing. And I'm sure a lot of people will be looking forward to that experience as well. I think that's all we have time for. Thank you to Horse great chat, many thanks. Great to see someone on the pod with long hair, not called Ben. There you go. And thank you, Alex, as well. Thanks for the insights, Mikey and Izzy, appreciate that. Town players in FBL, says Portsmouth. Yeah, so I think it feels like this is just the start of knowledge share. It feels like there's a team by team thing. We'll definitely do that. There's some FPL chat, definitely. So if you've got thoughts about Premier League content, I mean, we've got plenty of coming out of our ears as well, but stuff that you actually want to hear or see, let us know on socials or put in the comments or join us on Telegram and let us know as well. But thank you so much, Mikey. Particularly thank you so much, Izzy, as well. We appreciate your insights. Do do come back and talk more about the Premier League. We're keen to get your views on the rest of the Premier League and who we can beat. That'll be great. But thank you everyone for sticking with us as well. Great numbers for a Wednesday night. We appreciate you. As I say, we'll see you on in Telegram, and I'm sure we'll see you before then, but otherwise we'll see you in the Premier League. Have a great week, everyone, and see you on Sunday.